Hey everybody, welcome. Thanks for checking out the Pulse for Good channel. Today we're going to be reacting to 30 constructive feedback examples, right? We're going to talk about what works, what doesn't work, and we're going to see how you could be giving how you could be giving better feedback, and hopefully that'll lead to some better ways to be able to gather feedback and respond to that feedback. So without further ado, really quick, this is brought to you by Valeris, Valamis. I have no idea. They're a learning platform, and they just have a great thing on constructive feedback. And I figured I'd go through it and we talk about it. And so they break constructive feedback into two real pieces, right? They have praise and criticism. And they give some good examples of both, right? And so we're just going to go through each of them, talk about them, and fairly briefly. And in fact, we'll probably break this up in a few different segments and go from there. So without further ado, here we go. So first, feedback about communication skills. All right, so here's a positive example. Thank you for keeping me informed of the progress of the project for XYZ. It's allowed me to keep my superiors up to date with our department. Everyone's excited to see the project enter the final phase. I'm impressed by your dedication on the team, and I look forward to seeing more from you. Right? Obviously, be great feedback to receive. You'd love to get that of, hey, we're impressed with you. You've done great. I think the key here is he very specifically called out, hey, thank you for this thing. And here's what it allowed me to do, right? You're able to give the feedback on the specific thing, and this is what it allowed me to do. Everything else is kind of superlative, right? It's just adding emphasis on top of it. It's the cherry to let you know, hey, you're awesome, which is great. It's important to do, but this is the real key. You did something good, right? It reinforces this behavior of informing me, and here's why it was important to me. So that's an awesome piece of feedback about how to communicate with somebody. All right, so now it's like a negative example. Now this is an appropriate negative example. So this is negative feedback that you're getting or you're giving to somebody, something they need to improve on. Doesn't mean that this feedback is poorly worded or not the way you should give feedback. There's an inappropriate. That's the difference between appropriate and inappropriate on here. So let's just read. You haven't been keeping me well informed on your project, right? So this is going to be the inverse of the other one. I don't know what's going on. I'd like to see more communication from you. Can you arrange to have a 10-minute call every Friday with progress updates? So there's a few things I like about this. One, they're direct about what's wrong, right? Hey, you're not informing me. Two, they show why this is a problem. I don't know what's going on, and they also point out what they'd like to see improved. I want more communication, right? So they point out the problem, they point out why it's a problem, they point out what they'd like to see from you, and then they suggest a way to improve it. Like those are four great pieces of feedback and how to respond to it there. If I'm giving negative feedback, what's it a problem of? Why is it a problem? What you'd like to see to fix it, and a tangible example of how you may be able to work together to fix it. I like this because it doesn't put all of um, the impetus for fixing it back on the person. It's not saying you're bad at this, fix this, and it's all on you. It's from a manager's perspective, stepping up and saying, hey, let's fix this. Here's some ways we may be able to improve. Let's get this 10-minute call scheduled, and that may be able to fix the problem. But also let you know there is a problem, and you need to work to fix it. So let's talk about one of the negative examples. And is, did no one teach you how to communicate? This team needs to know what's going on. This is completely unprofessional. So there's a few interesting things here. A, there's no concrete examples. It's just you suck at communicating. The team needs to needs to know what's going on. Like that is a reason, but it's also it feels like it generalizes the problem a little bit as opposed to being like, I don't know what's going on and I like more communication. It just says the team doesn't know what's going on, and the team has various means of getting understanding. It doesn't necessarily just needs to come from this one person. It really kind of shoves the problem aside as opposed to just being direct of here's what it is, we need to communicate, and then it's completely unprofessional. That one just feels emotional, right? It's emotional feedback is really good feedback. Now let's talk about the inverse of this for a second. How would you respond to these things? Now obviously it's really easy to respond to the positive example, right? You're just going to keep informing people, you know it's good, you keep moving forward. Positive feedback's easy to respond to. The appropriate negative feedback, right? The nice thing about this is the suggestion was already there, but I don't really care about either of these examples because what we're often going to get when we get feedback from clients or other things, or even maybe employees or often our bosses, like this is an interesting thing. These proposals are how to get better at giving feedback, but honestly, the people you get feedback from may not follow this. They may not give constructive feedback. They're probably giving these inappropriate negative examples. So how can we learn from that? How can we get better by looking at this inappropriate stuff and figuring out how to break it apart? Well, we saw from the appropriate negative example that there was like 4 key things, right? There was a very direct, this is what's wrong, right? You haven't been keeping me informed. 2, you see the consequences of that, right? I don't know what's going on. 3, you see the expectations that need to come from there, right? I would like more communication, right? That's 3. And 4, there's a concrete example. So we have those 4 things, right? So just review them again. 1, the exact pain of what's going on. I haven't been informed. 2, right? It means I don't know what's going on. The consequences of what the pain is. Pain, consequences, right? 3, expectations. Pain, consequences, expectations. 4, ideas. So now if we go back to the negative example, and we know we want pain, consequences, expectations, and some ideas to improve it, we don't really get any of those other than, hey, did no one teach you to communicate? You suck at your job. Well, if I take this feedback, can I come up with those 4 things myself? All right, so if no one taught me to communicate, then obviously the pain is somewhere around communication. And so some follow-up questions may need to be in there of, okay, what type of communications am I lacking in doing? What would you like to see? Let's identify that pain, right? Also try and understand the consequences of that pain. What is it not allowing you to do? How can I help in that regard? So we have pain, consequences. Then let's look at the next thing that we need to do is expectations. So once I understand the pain from the person, they obviously need some communication, and understanding the consequences of it. What is the expectation? How often am I supposed to communicate? How often am I supposed to be able to making these improvements, and communicating with you to be better? And then fourth, they don't come with an idea, so it's our turn to come with an idea and say, hey, what if we arrange the meeting every Friday to meet and talk about these things? So you're often going to be in a situation where you're not getting good feedback. That just happens. For Pulse customers, right, you're often going to get feedback that like, hey, your team sucks, right? Well, the next thing to do is to try and understand, how can I get those 4 things, pain, consequences, expectations, and ideas, out of my clients? And how can I do that via a survey? So a few thoughts and suggestions. You can follow up with people when they put negative reviews in, right? And of course, it's anonymous. But for instance, if somebody answers a 1 star on something, for instance, how is your interactions with the staff? If that was a question on a 1 to 5 star scale, right? When they answer 1 star, the immediate thing you can do is try and say, what did they do that was, that made it 1 star? What was it that was a lower, um, a poor experience, right? Try and get to that pain. And even inside of that, the consequences. If you can understand those 2 things of, hey, instead of your staff sucks, it's Joe didn't get my application turned in on time, so I missed out on my opportunity to get housing, right? Pain, consequences. You can even ask questions to follow up of, how would you like this to be fixed? Which would get you to expectation and ideas, right? So when you get this type of bad feedback, follow those 4 steps: pain, consequences, expectation, and idea, and you'll be able to really clearly try and understand how you can fix things. And remember that when people start giving you feedback just in person, to follow up with those 4 things: pain, consequences, expectation, and idea. And you can turn almost any feedback into constructive feedback. All right, obviously this is a little bit longer than we wanted to go. And so there's 30 of these. So we're going to break these up into parts, and we'll come back and check us out for part 2.